Probably hearing my voice, I have a bit of a cough, and so my voice will be a bit rough this morning, but it is time to compare the two Enjomors. This is the old one here that was red, and I painted the flywheels yellow on the center. And this is the new one that I had just ordered from Smurfs88 on AliExpress, because it was on a ridiculously cheap sale, and I couldn't really not pick up a second one of these cute little engines for that price. So let's take a look and see what the differences are. Right away, it's pretty apparent that the flywheels are really different. And as you can see, the new engine came with red anodized center, and this is a two-part cast aluminum with a steel, I think it's steel, I don't actually have a magnet to check it, tire pressed on the outside like the ET series. The ET engines all have cast aluminum with a pressed on tire. This old red one here, this is a solid flywheel, and it's steel all the way in to the center. It's got a hole in the end of the crankshaft here, so the old unit was possibly turned on center. The new unit doesn't have a drilled hole in the end of the crankshaft. The new unit has a slightly different clamp here. It's got a single brass clamp collar that goes into the aluminum on the flywheel, so the flywheel must have a cone shape drilled in it. The old Enjomor has a two-piece brass clamp, so the cone is in the brass here, and when you tighten this, it pushes the two pieces together, and this one, the inner one that's the outside with the screws in it, clamps down, but it also presses out on the outer brass collar, and then you get clamping in and then out to the flywheel, and the flywheel is drilled straight. Otherwise, we've got the same brass here, it looks like. And the crankshaft is still a solid one here, so it's very out of balance. This push rod on the old one appears to be cast, and the new push rod looks like it's milled, because you can see there's a casting seam, parting seam on the top of this old push rod, and there's no parting seam on the new push rod. So the new push rod is milled. Yeah. So we'll take a closer look at that when we start tearing this new one apart. The old one, this red coating is I think painted on, because if you look on the inside, there's overspray on the inside of the hopper, and I think if they had powder coated this, then the powder would have gotten inside the hopper better. The black one also, no, I'm gonna guess the black one was powder coated, but I don't know for sure. I'm not. Well, it doesn't look like overspray inside here. It looks like the powder got in. But like I said, I don't know. I'm not an expert on powder coating. The oil cups look the same. And then when I open this up, the first thing I did notice is you can see there's already a gap on the governor weights, and there's a washer in there. And when I got this first one, I had to take the governor apart and put washers under those governor weights to get them to move freely. So that's nice that they have started doing that. Let's see. Do I notice any other differences from this angle, that angle? Nope. The mufflers are the same. And the head looks to be the same on these, but the big one is just the flywheels and the crankshaft are completely different construction. So the bottom end of these engines is completely different, and I think that it's got some nice new features. I guess since we are already in here, we'll start taking this apart. So so the new one, the clamp here, oh. And need to get a sometimes if you give them a tap they'll come loose, but apparently not, so I need to get there. Just something tiny to pop behind there and pull the brass collar out. So, yep. Very nice. There, and then I can leave that all in one piece. The old one would come apart, so you had to, or the two-piece collar meant you had to disassemble it further, so. Can I? Nope. These two screws here are still in the way of that arm lifting up. So. Go, and it's got the spring in the pocket just like the other one, so that governor arm is the same, but yeah, little plastic washers to reduce friction, so that's really nice. Definitely a good upgrade on this engine. While I'm taking this side of the engine apart, I'm going to immediately remove the bracket with the trigger on it, because if you remember my first Enjomor, I had an issue with the ignition module backfiring through that third wire. The red and black, or the black and white are on the trigger, and then the third wire was getting the ignition high voltage and it was grounding out instead of sparking. So I will pull that off and strip that red wire out immediately. Is there a timing mark? No. Alright. Well, I'm gonna have to go get something to punch a timing mark, or put a timing mark on this, on these gears, so I can get them back together. I certainly can do it by hand, but it's definitely easier to just mark them the way you should. There's also a piece, some marker on this, so that when they milled this, they did keep it right way around at some juncture, so that's good. One thing is, this push rod is still just steel all the way through, so I am going to immediately take this off and put a brass shoe on there to make sure that it doesn't wear too hard. And I will take a minute to, after I've gotten a punch to mark the teeth on the, or the timing on the gear here, we'll take the back end out and take a look at this milled crankshaft, or push, or connecting rod, milled connecting rod. So, but first I need to find a way to mark those gears, so we'll be back when I have that tool found. Alright, so I rotated that to be the lowest point on there, and I'm just going to take magic marker on those teeth for now, because I don't plan to be wiping this off. I'm just taking it out so we can look over the engine closer. So the cam looks like it's the same profile, but I'd have to fully take apart the old Enjomor. There's the steel push rod, and we'll just take the bearing caps off. I am noticing that some of these screws are loose, like that first screw that I loosened on this bearing cap wasn't even finger tight. I don't remember if that was true of the first Enjomor or not. Oh yeah, and this screw is all, or this bolt is also loose, so a feeling that they do not get double checked. They just get put in and then left. And these are all, one nice thing about the Enjomor is it basically uses one size of screws for everything. So bearing cap, actually I will pop this other flywheel off, and that way it will just be out of the way when I lift and withdraw the connecting rod and everything, and the crankshaft in one unit. So, all right. There. Now, this side does not want to give up that clamp, but interesting. So because this doesn't have the two-piece brass insert, it does have a boss on the inside of the aluminum flywheel, so that it's more or less level with the outer rim of the flywheel. So, all right, we'll finish getting this apart. There we go. And I did set those bearing caps to the side. In order, so I'll know what to do, or which side they came from. So there we go. So single piece bronze oilite style bushing. I don't remember what's on the other Enjomor. I think it's the same style bushing. I don't think it's split like the bushings on some of the other engines, but there we go. One beautifully solid milled connecting rod. The cast one on the other Enjomor is, okay, but having a solid milled one is good. They're still using the brown piston ring. This one feels like a better fit than... For a long time, the Enjomors were coming with a very tight fit piston ring. Like, I do remember that my old piston ring was a lot stiffer fit. The wrist pin is still loose in there, but it looks good there. I'll turn this around and take the head off since we're here. This plug is the most generic plug. For a long time they were marked as PK, but that one doesn't even have PK stamped on it. I know that the plug in my current Enjomor is not the original, but I don't know that I have any unmarked plugs. I think they all are stamped PK, or they're a better brand, or some other name brand. So first got this engine, like I said, it was on sale for a very low price, and the picture did not show the pretty anodized flywheel centers. I was planning to take this apart and completely repaint it as part of the modifications, but the black body and red flywheel looks pretty good. I may take this apart and repaint the main casting, but it's got carbon in it from when they test fired it, so we know it ran. And the valves feel good and it had good compression. It looks like the head is the same, and there is the tiniest bit of rust at the top of the cylinder bore. Right there. So there was water in this engine at some point, and it did rust a little bit in there, but I just got a brake cylinder hone, so I can run that hone through there and clean that rust out. The cylinder looks good, it's just that one bit of rust, and we all know that the tiniest bit of new rust always promotes more, so I better get rid of that before it gets worse. But yeah, the main difference is the flywheel design got changed, and then they made that nice improvement by including these plastic washers on the to go behind the governor weights so that they swing freer. The flywheel differences on the two Enjomors. So this is the old flywheel. It's got two-piece brass insert. The one goes straight in like so and has that cut in it, and then the outer section, I like to make sure that the two cuts are separate, are 180 degrees off of each other. And then when you clamp it, this is wedge shaped, and it forces the outer collar to open up inside the flywheel and clamp outward while it clamps down inward on the crankshaft. The new engine has just the straight collar on it, and the cone is machined into the aluminum flywheel center, so it's a single clamp action. This piece goes into the cone and clamps down on the flywheel, or on the crankshaft, and it doesn't require outward clamping to the flywheel and then inward clamping to the crankshaft. So this is a simpler design. It works with the aluminum flywheel inset pretty good, it looks like, and it certainly is, by comparison. Let me get these both in shot. You can see the old style has the big honkin' chunk out front, and the new style is very low profile. So I think the new style looks really nice, so hopefully Well, when I get the new engine done, it'll look real nice.